Hello and welcome back to the Station Park Boardroom. I'm once again joined by Vice Chairman Paul Stephen and Club Secretary Alan Shepherd. Gents, it's been 3 months since we last spoke. How do you reflect on the things that have gone on in the last 3 months? The club's in a bit more of a stable position now.
Yeah, it was great to get across the line a week past Saturday. 3 months since we last spoke. That's been a long 3 months, or it's felt like a long 3 months certainly. I think since we last spoke, obviously the position we were in at the foot of the table at that time, got a bit worse. Then Jim and Gavin got us in a tremendous run of results. For me the turning point I think being the Tuesday night down at Stranraer, coming back from 1-0 down at half time, being down to 10 men, to turn that around in the second half, and that sort of kick-started really a little run of results that kind of closed that gap on Bonnyrigg and then got us above them.
You mentioned turning points there. Is that a sense of what the results a few weeks ago on Saturday, that staying up could be for the club?
Well, certainly hope so. Nobody here at the club wants to be in that position again. Just the feeling of dread as the game wore on, and particularly after we knew Bonnyrigg had scored down at Stranraer. Just I think at the final whistle, a bit of an outpouring of relief, I think you could say, from all quarters. And yeah, we were talking about that immediately afterwards. We just never want to be in this position again. The board don't, the manager doesn't, we certainly know the supporters don't.
And you say you don't want to be in that position again. What steps are being taken to, I suppose, make sure that doesn't happen again?
Well, I think the best thing for me anyway, or the most, what would be the word I'm looking for, is the fact that the management team have started already looking to build a team, their team. And I think what has come across is that they're not waiting, to see who's available. They're going out and actually approaching players. And I think that's sort of like the basis to start from, is that they're looking after that. So, as a board, we have to be able to say, well, we have to rebuild and reset and get everything done properly, but just to make sure that we can back them. And I think the main point of call is that I think we've got the right management team. Probably said that in the past, but the fact that they've gone, final whistle, probably by the Monday morning after the last game, they were looking at players telling us, we're going to be doing this. And to be honest, they're coming and telling us who they're looking at, rather than us having to say, well, who are you looking for, what are you looking at, so they've really, that's impressed me. Being in the secretary role, you deal with the manager a bit more closely, and I think they're on the ball in that respect. So I think that gives you the hope that we're not going to be sort of left, I hate using the word, but signing the ones that are just floating about that nobody else wants, and we're looking for a team that Jim and Gavin want to build.
You mentioned the management team there, and I think this brings me on to my point. Since Jim was last here at the club, the finishes have been generally trending downwards. I know that's a big source of frustration for the fans and myself. And I'm sure the board as well, I've got 9th place in League 1, 10th in League 1, 2nd in League 2, 5th in League 2, 6th in League 2, and then 9th in League 2. That trend can't continue. If it continues, we'll be in the Highland League in 2026, 27. What has been done to try to turn around what is now being 6 seasons of regression?
Well, I think as Alan touched on just a second ago, we're confident we've got the right management team in place. And I think everybody could see when Jim got up into the stand after the final whistle in the last match there and gave a little impromptu speech, what his passion and drive is, and his depth of feeling towards Forfar Athletic as a club. So on the management front, we're confident we've got the right team in place to make sure that we take the club forward in the seasons ahead, and certainly not any kind of regression. We've also then been looking as a board at budgets, income, where can we achieve more potential sponsorship opportunities to increase income, to try to give the manager the best budget possible, to make sure that doesn't happen. And I'm certainly confident that we will not be in terms of the bottom budgets of League 2. In fact, the Edinburgh City manager came out at the weekend and had said he felt they had the lowest budget in the SPFL and finished third. And we've got to make sure we identify talent with the budget we've got to make sure that we finish as high up that league table as possible.
Yeah, and I think the encouraging thing for us as well was that, you know, despite, I won't say plummeting, but, you know, not really being out of the bottom 3 or 4 for most of the season, the crowds actually went up. So, you know, okay, we hate to think it was desperation, you know, we're all wanting, you know, we're all behind it, but I do think you have to appreciate that, because the easiest thing in the world would be for the fans just to turn around and say, well, I'm not going to watch that rubbish, you know, which, and I'll be quite honest, some of the games that they saw last season were entirely rubbish, but I think that shows that there is a core there and they want the club to do well. So, and I think the encouraging thing for us is that we should be trying to build on that rather than just accepting it, that, oh well, that'll be great, everybody will turn up. So with that in mind, we had a board meeting last night, and we've all agreed that we would just freeze all the season ticket prices, admission prices for next season, mainly as a thank you to the fans, because, you know, if it continually ask them to put more money into the club by putting the season tickets up and the admission prices, you're going to reach a stage where folk are going to say, well, it's not value for money. There might still be some out there that would say that is the case, but this all is part of how we can build to give Jim and Gavin the budget they need. But we've also mindful that we've got to keep, you know, the club afloat. Various clubs, as we've spoken about, I think 3 months ago, have had issues. So we didn't want to go down that route. But there are times when you sometimes think, how are we going to make it? And I think we've been lucky in Fighting Fund and you know, sponsorship. So, you know, we're still looking for sponsorship. Beating the same old drum. But hopefully it'll bring a more positive reaction rather than we're just needing the money to survive. We're hoping that the money, if we can get more investment sponsorship, will drive us forward, and it all helps. And you know, if crowds can go up as well, and the only way you'll get that is by playing good football and being higher up the league, and I'm quite confident that, you know, that will happen. You know.
How encouraging was it for you guys to see the uplift in crowds last season? Because, like you said, good football brings crowds, but we were down at the bottom for so long and the crowd still went up.
I think that's the thing, you know, the trend would have been, you know, your hardcore of 500, 550 could have dropped down, and I think that would have made an even bigger impact on it, because I felt, especially, you know, towards the last, even away from home, you know, not just the home supporters, we were getting good support away from home, and it was quite encouraging. I think the players appreciate that, and I think what we've also, you know, as a board we've noticed is that you kind of take it for granted, but you know that the support is out there, and you just have to harness it better, you know, and again, we have to be maybe a bit more, doing things like this, you know, a wee bit more approachable, but, you know, we don't take it for granted every year. We're going to get that type of support, but it's very heartening that, you know, when you're in dire straits, the crowds came out, you know, to support you, and I think you can only be thankful to everybody that came and supported us over the last sort of 6 weeks of the season.
I think when you see the way that the supporters have got behind the club and Jim and Gavin since they came in, you know, that's been tremendous. You know, and that's what we've got to kind of, you know, show that loyalty back towards supporters. That's why we're keeping season ticket prices at the same as last season. You know, yes, we need to give the management team a budget to strengthen the team as much as possible, but we want to get the supporters behind the team as well. And if everybody at the club, from the board to the management team to the players to the supporters, can all be pulling in the same direction, you know, that's how we'll achieve success.
Absolutely, and just coming on to the manager's transfer business, it got started last night, but you mentioned try to bring through young talent. Could you just tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, I mean, Al and I have both been involved in some meetings with the local community football club and junior teams about potentially trying to set up kind of pathway structures where we might be able to identify some young talent. You know, the idea being that it won't happen overnight, but that, you know, for Athletic can hopefully start to identify the best of the young local talent, and we can maybe partner with the other local football clubs, you know, so that they can get the benefit of that until players are perhaps ready to be a part of our first team squad.
Yeah, because I think the whole community aspect is, certainly from my point of view, I was a young 8 or 9 year old, even younger maybe, if you're part of a Forfar Athletic community, you would want to be maybe get that chance to play for Forfar Athletic. And at the moment, you know, we're working hard with the other teams that are involved, and it's just creating that tier, you know, of the sort of 16-year-olds, and obviously the better ones will get picked up by bigger clubs, but it's when they maybe get released, where do they go? And we'd like to think there will still be an avenue, and through working some sort of a pathway, we can maybe get them back playing locally rather than just being lost to the game. Because I think one of the guys who was at the community team says some of them they stopped playing football. So, you know, it'd be a shame, but I think if that possibility was there, it would help us tremendously. And I know Paul and Gavin had a conversation about that. I think Gavin, you know, he's really into his community stuff, and he also thinks that it would be great to, you know, maybe invite youngsters to come and have a training game, you know, during pre-season or whatever. But, you know, it'd be organised, but we'd be trying to pick the better players from the area, but to give the local talent, you know, Forfar and Carray and or the wee villages in between. Because there's, you know, if you look at for instance the Suter brothers and Ryan Gold and all these guys, I mean, they just came for, you know, the Merns, as it were, which, you know, it's not a footballing hotbed. So, you know, there could be youngsters here who are being missed out because they're maybe not good enough to go to the Dun Uniteds, and they've never had the chance to come to Forfar. So we have to try and put that in place, and that's just all moving forward. You know, I think things have to change in that regard. But I think with the community, the way the community trust and the clubs are all working together, I'm hopeful that we will get something in the.
And between even the kind of our local area between Forfar and Kirriemuir, I mean, there's no under 17s and under 18s teams that the clubs have got. So we need to try and bridge that gap as kids get older, to give them a pathway through into whether it is senior football in the junior game or into the professional game for the outstanding talent.
Absolutely. Just lastly then, we've talked about the fighting fund, we've talked about transfer kitties and all these things, and the fighting fund is still ongoing, but there's plenty of other pathways that you can get involved with the club. Alan, if you'd like to talk us through a few of those.
Well, I suppose beating the same old drum, but, you know, we've got plenty of sponsorship opportunities for various things from, you know, you've got your hospitality, which we know we do very well on, but we're looking at little things that you can get involved with. There's advertising boards, even match ball sponsor, you got boardroom hospitality, there's sponsoring even the kit bags, the training gear. You know, it's every little goes to help, and all that money that's coming in helps the budget, so we can, you know, keeps the club going. But it also means then that we're earning more income, and we can keep Jim and Gavin happy. But it's basically any business or individual that's wanting to have a chat, would like to invest money, you know, shares. There's always room for somebody. We'll not turn them away, you know, and feel free. And if it's just something that kind of help. But we're trying to get smaller businesses involved, you know, and every little helps for us. But it's also, I think, we're trying to get back into the community. You know, well, I certainly would love to have more of the smaller local shops and businesses seeing their name on something up here, and I think it helps to reflect that. So maybe we have to look at other avenues away from the bigger sponsorship packs. But definitely, if there's some way we can put somebody's name on it, we'll certainly try and do it, and we can always work out what's going to be the best. But the basic is that we still want people to buy season tickets, come to the games, but we're also looking for, you know, out with that, the extra things that we can get money from sponsorship, advertising, you know, so we'll not turn anybody away, that's for sure.
And of course, it's not just financial contributions. This club runs on volunteers, and I know in the media team we're looking for extra arms, and I'm sure there's plenty of other ways across the club. If anyone did want to help out, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, I think just get in touch, either a message through our Facebook page or one of the social media channels, or if you've contact details for any of the directors, get in touch, reach out. You know, we're always looking for people to help out doing things, whether it's from helping with match day, hospitality. You mentioned the media team. I know we're currently maybe looking for somebody to do some video editing next season, with Josh stepping down from his FAFCTV role. So yeah, anything at all, please just get in touch.
Absolutely then, and I'll finish up with one question, I suppose, to you both. what would constitute a successful season for Forfar Athletic in 2025-26? Is it simply staying in the league? Is it pushing further up? What do you guys see as success?
Personally, I would love to see us fighting there to go up. Realistically, you know, you kind of set, well, you can set high targets, but yeah, I'd say if we're not going to be winning the league, a playoffs minimum, but certainly not to be sitting at the bottom two going into the last game, you know, I'm strongly think that won't be the case. But yeah, for me, I think we've got to set our targets high, and I think Jim and Gavin do. So I would be looking, yeah, for us to be at least in with a chance of reaching the League One.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see it. You know, you always target maybe above what you realistically expect to achieve. You know, if we aim to finish 9th, the chances are we might finish 10th. You know, and that would be a disaster next season, especially when we've got Dumbarton starting on -5 points. You know, really what we've got to be doing is targeting trying to win League Two, in the hope that if you don't achieve that, you at least achieve a promotion playoff spot, and that we're in the hunt for trying to get back out of League Two and get up to League One. And that might sound a little bit ambitious, but that's what we've got to be aiming for.
Just simply then, is finishing 9th good enough?
No, definitely not.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciate that. And I'm sure we'll catch up before the season starts.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Cheers.